Tammy. How are you?
How are you? I am very good. How about you?
I'm doing well. So, thank you so much for joining me on Father's Day.
Yes, ma'am.
And how has your day been so far?
Very good. It's been
Good,
good. Yeah.
good.
How was yours?
It's been good. So, not too busy really, kind of just doing the same old thing. We're finishing the bathroom and stuff finally in the other house. So, we brought a bunch of clothes over because it got hot, kind of like we were talking about,
Yep.
down here in the south. So, all the
Yep.
stuff kind of needed to be washed again over there. So, Chris
Yep.
got most of that stuff out today.
Yep.
And now we are here. So I was kind of wanting to share this latest interview with Sebastian Rogers' father, that Seth Rogers. That was, I'm not sure which station it was on. Let me see.
Not either.
It just says news to ABC. So we'll kind
Okay.
of see if it plays the beginning of it when we get there. But the reason I kind of want to play this interview is because we had talked in a few lives back kind of about like possibly being a law created or something, happening in that
Mm-hmm.
case to kind of help maybe move it along or get some kind of movement or just figure out what's going on possibly. And I want to say not just in Tennessee, but kind of feeling like focused in Tennessee, at least for this live, we're going to be talking
Right.
about that a lot.
Right.
As far as like, Sebastian and Summer, because we're going to talk about some of, the stuff that came out about Summer recently too. I know it was like a small tip of some sort, but we're kind of just going to discuss that and see what you think about it. I just want to get
Right.
your opinion.
Okay.
So, but before we watch the interview, do you have any comments about that? Have you even watched it yet?
Yes, I have watched the
Okay.
interview, and I think Seth did. I think he did very well because I
Yeah.
don't know that I could have.
Yeah.
I mean, I know that you have to have that calmness and you have to have that strength to move
Mm-hmm.
forward like that. And you got to think this is for
Mm-hmm.
Sebastian. I got to keep my cool. I got to keep my calm. So I'm able to put out what I want
Yeah.
everybody to know about my son,
Mm-hmm.
so, but I think he did a great job. I don't know how he does really well. I think
Yeah.
I would probably be a basket case, but I think he
Yeah.
did really well.
I like how it keeps like very like laser focused on point and like
Right.
is like it's like completely from the heart and soul, which it should be, and it is, with him. And I said, and I think the last live we did actually like 3 or 4 weeks ago, we did it on Mother's Day, which was
Mhm.
the complete contrast of kind of what we're going to see in this one, which I think is interesting just in that sense, because we did Katie, a prophet in her interviews on Mother's Day and how not to be how you don't want a mother to behave or be, the
Right.
complete opposite. And so you see Seth, and this is exactly what you want to see, that kind of
Right.
encouragement and everybody to look and still telling everybody that, you want movement and
Mhm.
still to focus on the goal, which is finding Sebastian, creating some laws to possibly help move it forward and just in the future to prevent things like this possibly happening again.
Right.
So I like we had kind of talked about, too, about the law. We'll kind of get into that after. I do know they're trying to sign things possibly or create
Yeah.
a law of some sort. So we'll kind of go ahead and play the interview and then we'll get into that. So I'm going to go ahead and pull that up right here real quick though. Make sure it comes up. Can you see it well? And like
Yeah,
everything's
I
kind of okay. So
can.
make sure it's not buffering too much. So let me go ahead and unmute it and then we'll go ahead and start it.
It has been 453 days since now 16-year-old Sebastian Rogers vanished from his home in Hendersonville. His disappearance sparked national headlines, but now his father says the case is losing momentum. With National Missing Children's Day coming up on Sunday, he is raising his voice and demanding urgency. News 2's Caitlin Quisenberry is outside the Sumner County Sheriff's Office, where Sebastian's father made an emotional plea today. Caitlin.
Sebastian's biological father, Seth Rogers, was deeply frustrated when he spoke with me. He fears the case is going cold.
My son's been missing for 15 months, and they don't care.
Sebastian disappeared in February last year. He was just 15 years old. Initial search efforts involved local police, the TBI, and the FBI. But those physical searches have since shifted to focus on the investigative side. The last press conference on the case was more than a year ago.
I would love to see them actually conducting more searches. I'd like to have some communication on the tips that have come in just with me, so that I know that when a tip comes in, I'm not following up on what job they're supposed to do.
Seth said one detective is actively assigned to the case and that he is often left to chase down the same leads also sent to law enforcement.
We need more than just one set of eyes on this case, but it all falls on my shoulders to ask people to help find my son. My son means something to me. These people should be doing their job.
In his push for progress, Seth says he's reached out to lawmakers and is even drafting federal legislation aimed at reforming how child protection agencies and the Amber Alert system handle missing children's cases.
It's a federal oversight law on places like CPS, DCS, the Amber Alert, getting it redone and taking it out of people's hands that don't care about the children.
According to the FBI, an estimated 460,000 children are reported missing in the U.S. every year. Seth says every one of those cases deserves attention, including Sebastian's.
A parent demands answers. We demand answers because our heart is missing. He is my world. I need him. I need him back with me.
We reached out to the Sumner County Sheriff's Office for a statement. They assured us this case remains a top priority and said in part, please know that behind the scenes, a tremendous amount of work has been done and will continue. Some aspects of the investigation are not visible to the public due to the sensitive nature of the case. Sebastian's family continues to ask for the community's help. If you know anything about Sebastian's whereabouts, you're asked to call the Sumner County Sheriff's Office or the TBI. Those numbers can be found on our website at WKRN.com. Live in Gallatin, Caitlin Quisenberry, News 2.
Okay. So, do you have any immediate thoughts, or not immediate, but kind of what you got the feel of through that interview, in the contrast of what we were talking about from the other one?
Well, do you remember? It's been a little while. I can't tell you exactly when it was because I can't remember. But it was kind of after a lot of the drama was going on, and then Seth and Tony were talking about how Seth was in communication with law enforcement every day.
Mm-hmm.
They were talking every day, and now it seems that there's not no proper English. It seems like there's not communication. Are you getting that?
Yeah, I did get that. I got that for a while. There was a lot of communication, or at least it seemed like it was, like you said, daily or at least weekly at the most, or least. And then all of a sudden it's like it stopped,
right?
Maybe very abruptly, and that's what it feels like. Because I don't think that they were misleading on that. I think that, like you're saying, I think it very much was very often, and then it trailed off for some reason. And just before, I want to tell everyone, you're welcome as they come in. And then Scout has been here for a bit, and she was saying, heartbreaking case, and it is, it's very heartbreaking. They all are, but this one is sad in the sense of we kind of talked about. It had many opportunities to be stopped, whereas some of these we see don't always have that, and so that kind of is something that adds an extra bit of a layer of we kind of have to figure out what's going on here, why this happened, and again how to prevent this, what laws can be put into place. And then also, happy Father's Day, like Tom Glider is saying, and welcome, or Gilder. I'm sorry, I would say that backwards. But
Scout and Choir in a long time. I remember from our lives. Yeah, I remember him also. I remember.
Yeah, he was just here, I guess, a couple lives ago. I think about the time we were talking about, Katie's interview, pretty much, and how that was going. Yeah, and so you can definitely see the difference in these two between. Katie and Seth, so Seth is very much frustrated and this is enough. And he's standing outside of there, pointing to him, and, it very much feels shut down. When you're looking at it, it's like they're trying to ignore what's happening outside is what it feels like. So he just keeps pointing and pointing. So it's like that kind of give me some answers. I'm not going away. So, that's what you want to see, where you saw the opposite with Katie. And it was here's, this tattoo that looks like a memorial, kind of, in my opinion. And some of the things that they were just saying, completely inappropriate, So, So with that kind of, with being said, as far as the law, we were talking about, he's talking about an Amber Alert, things like that being brought in sooner. Now with Summer, do you remember if an Amber Alert was put out for Summer?
I do remember it was put out, and I think the problem they do with the Amber Alert is, and I could be wrong, and probably if somebody watches later they'll correct me, I'm sure,
Mhm.
But I think the Amber Alert is put out when you pretty much feel someone has been abducted.
Right. Like proof, well, not proof, but like the police feel that there's enough proof that there's
Right.
been an abduction. I don't know if Summers was ever, I don't remember if it got that, but I remember a lot of things happening at that time with like,
Yeah.
different,
Yeah.
because I can't remember if they did a Amber Alert for her or not.
Yeah.
But I know they didn't immediately with him that I
I
remember.
know they did. I'm pretty sure they did one with Summer, because I remember talking about it on my channel, but I can't remember how far into it was.
Yeah.
But I know Sebastian's was like,
way later.
yeah, way
Like
later.
a year or so later.
It was
I want to
way,
say
yeah, and it was really weird to me because I'm like, why are you just now
doing
doing
it.
an Amber Alert? And then I got to looking into Amber Alerts, and
Mhm.
it's mainly an Amber Alert is just for abduction.
Yeah. I kind of
But
wonder too if that's more of the videos that kind of were starting to come out and they really couldn't justify the lights in the car,
Mhm.
and some of the stuff that was starting to happen. So maybe that's kind of why they gave in, maybe, and gave the Amber Alert. I'm not really sure.
Yeah.
But
Well,
yeah,
the problem I have with that is whether you're a parent that has done something or you're a stranger that has picked someone up, the fact that you took that child
yeah,
from their home and removed them is an abduction. Whether
yeah,
you're a parent or whether you're a stranger, you're still doing harm. You're taking that child away and doing harm. So
yeah,
for me, that's an abduction.
yeah,
But
yeah. And
I
like, and like in this case, whether Katie and Chris were a part of that, which in my opinion they were. Like I said,
right.
I do feel it was very orchestrated, the whole thing. I think it took place, at least the planning of it, weeks before. In my opinion, that's why she says combing over the weeks. She brings up a lot of that stuff. She knew the security system, things like that. So things that you would have had to know. But so yeah, like I do think that was kind of the difference in it that I'm seeing, just in the difference of Summer. I do feel Summer's was planned to an extent, but I feel like something went wrong with Summer
Yes,
in the
that's
middle of it all. Where with Sebastian, unfortunately, it just seems like everything just fell into
right.
perfect place. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? And that's like, again, that's what I was saying, like the polar opposites, but almost the same. Like
Yeah,
it's in different ways.
right.
Um, but yeah, so
And I feel like in Summer's case last week, I was talking about um, just different things with Summer, and you can match them with Sebastian, like the um the parents, you can match them up, like doing the
yeah,
weird things, how they're talking and stuff. But
yeah.
I totally agree with you about Summer. I totally agree with you about
Yeah, and then kind of like we were talking about a little bit back, you said that they had kind of made this, like I said, like a trade for the or I don't know if it's so much information, but with the Wells, they traded, the kids kind of for the CPS reports, which you're kind of feeling like within Sebastian, they're hiding what they've done is what's
yeah,
going on for the more or less here. Like all the adults who are involved now are just trying to hide what they've done and their
yeah,
connections and what they know. So
because Seth didn't even know about them.
no, and that's sad too. Like when you did see, as I watched the videos on his channel as they progressed and how he found out things over time. From what I saw, and maybe that's wrong, but I thought they said that he didn't find out till like way after, again,
He
like
did.
months after, where some of this stuff was happening for almost like a year before
Mm-hmm.
or something like that.
Yeah.
So that's another thing that's just kind of like, again, he should have been told that, he should have known.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
And
and
the
then
excuse for that was, I believe, that they were telling this. I don't know how this. Kind of don't know about this because could be hearsay, but they were telling the school was telling Katie and Chris was telling the school that the father was not involved in his life.
yeah,
So I don't know if that was they were telling the school that or they were telling CPS that. I'm
yeah,
not sure who they were telling, but I
yeah.
did hear that early on, is that's why Seth wasn't
Didn't
told.
know. Yeah, and they should have still went around to make sure they were telling the truth. So which still makes me
Yes.
feel like there was those connections of where, they were willing, because even when he says Chris Prophet says in an interview, I'm pretty sure from what I've seen online is that like they told him that he was overreacting, like Sebastian was overreacting about like being, I feel like I don't know how to say it, but basically one of the situations that happened, they told him he was overreacting to it. And so again, it's like that shows you that that person was on their side for whatever reason, especially because I'm pretty sure this was like a few of them into it, which is kind of like what we were talking about as far as all the CPS reports and then him just disappearing, and then the proof of life that was also tried recently to be made known if there was a proof of life. And then I believe Chris Prophet had also got upset about that, in my opinion, on a live, saying that he had produced something, but nobody really knows, like you're saying, exactly what it was that he supposedly produced to Seth for this proof of life. And I think proof of life is important in this case and some of the other cases because you need that to be able to do anything else. So like you can, the other laws and stuff are great, but you also want to do proof of life. I feel like in Harmony Montgomery's case, the best thing that happened with that was the proof of life, because then her father, Adam, got charged. He's now, I don't know if he's already got his sentence or not, but I think it was rather life or death. One of them, I'm pretty sure, that's one of the two he's getting. I feel like it was death. But once they did that, then the mother was also able to sue the state for wrongful, death and all those other things or whatever, that was following from that. So all those things have to kind of be done to make the other thing be done. You know what I mean? So I feel like that's something is what they're trying to work towards. So I just feel like, I know at first everybody got kind of upset with that. They were like, we don't want that. How could you want that? Because you need it. You need it to be able to create some of these laws. You need it to be able to charge them with certain things. And that's the thing about the neglect and abuse. So we know, like they try to say, like with CPS and them being gone now or disappeared, and they can't testify, or they can't do it. But you can still kind of say, like, these interviews, they've admitted to it. In my opinion, when you say that you've left a child in a, an adult, diaper, or anything like that to help them in the restroom or something like that, and you're saying you leave them at home alone for hours, or you do this for, or some of the things they've said they've done, or at school, the teacher said they text Chris Prophet and was like, he had an accident, we need something to change, and he tells them to sit in it. That's all neglect and abuse. So they kind of already admitted to that, like numerous times on a live. So this is stuff they've already, I can't see who would be like, I can't agree that that's abuse. I feel like, or neglect, whatever you want to call it, in my opinion. I know that's not like a so safe word for you too, but I mean, that is what it is. So I feel more comfortable using those words. I feel like you take away from the importance of the situation when you don't use those words, because that is what it is. So when you're listening to what some of the people have reported that CP said, or that they have done, about the pull-ups or being left home alone, or all these things where they're claiming that he couldn't have done this on his own in the beginning. Again, that's admitting to those things to me. So I wouldn't have a problem finding them guilty of those things. So I don't think many people would either. So I just think a lot of this, that would help at this point to start where you can, I mean, because where are we right now? Not much of anywhere. It feels like we're stuck, for whatever reason with their system, the LE. So, but I don't know. What would you think about that law, though? Do you think that it would be important to get the proof of life and things like that in general for most of these cases when things like this happen and they go on for a certain amount of time?
Because I think, like, and so they just waited too long to do things in Sebastian's case.
Yeah, I heard that they waited a couple of weeks to even get their phones. Like,
they just,
phones.
in my opinion, that should have been right then and there. That all that should have been taken. Because if something was to happen to my child, which my kids are grown now, but my grandchild or even my kids that are grown, if something was to happen and they're like, I need your phone right now, I'd be like, here, take it. I would be giving all my stuff up. I mean, quick. But I don't understand why they waited so long, because I know that, I don't know, that law enforcement or detectives, they have a way of retrieving stuff even if you delete it from your phone. I guess they do. They say they do. I don't know really know if that's true or not. I don't know. But, I don't know if they're in that mindset. Well, it doesn't matter if they delete it or not. We can still get it.
Yeah. I don't know. I would think so. I mean, that's how they make it sound. But with this one, it seems like they purposely waited, or so.
Yeah.
Especially because I feel like they knew what Katie did, for a living. So I don't really get why you would give somebody who has that kind of like
Leeway.
that kind of knowledge, the time to wipe their whole computers and their alarm systems and their digital tracks and everything. Like, why would you give them the opportunity to do that for so long? And then with Seth, it was immediately, from what he said, it was the same day. So why did you ask him when he was on camera at work?
Yeah, he was definitely not there.
like he was definitely not there, but you took all his stuff and y'all didn't give it back for a long time before y'all even ever took their stuff. And then Anne kind of made the comment that she thinks that Seth, from what she heard, that she's pretty sure that Seth was in most of these meetings about school, but he was still unaware of CPS. So that's what I'm saying. Like, it's like,
it's
weird. Wonder how.
So the school must have not been telling him there was CPS reports.
Right.
Because
maybe they assumed that he knew because they thought CPS was telling him, but they still should have probably asked, I guess.
Because, he requested them and it took a lawyer to get them. He had to get a lawyer to get the CPS reports for his own.
And then he said whoever was on the case of it, he did say it was a woman, from my knowledge, she got fired.
She did.
And then he made a comment, CP did, that it was a woman that had told Sebastian to stop overreacting about simple things. And that's what we were talking about too, what's sad about this, and you see with a lot of these kids, it's like these kids get put in these situations and they ask for help and they do all the things right and they're just shut down because they're children.
Right.
And it's like, and they're doing everything right. Like they're doing exactly what they're supposed to be doing to get the help that they need or things like that. So, and so, like, how do you feel like that was Summer? What do you think could have been done differently in like Summer's case, possibly, like in the contrast with Sebastian's?
Well, I guess I might as well, because I've been talking about Summer for 4 years, so I might as well not ease up on what I have, what I feel.
I don't.
If there was already CPS reports on her brothers, the odds of Summer being abused are pretty high. I can't see you, not treating her the same as you have been treating the other ones. So I don't understand why it took them so long to remove the boys and then not do better by keeping an eye on Summer. I'm not saying it's their fault that she's missing. What I'm saying is, if you already had CPS reports on the boys and you already were in the process of removing them, you should have been looking harder at Summer. You should have been testing. You should have been checking on her. You should have been giving her the same visits that you were giving the boys.
And usually they do. Like, usually, like, if someone's being like investigated or something, like, even if the kids like are split through homes and things, they will still have the child come from the other person's home. If they have separate families already, like they remarry, whatever, they'll have the stepchildren and things all come together and they'll ask them all the same questions. To most of my knowledge. So it is interesting that it's like in some of these cases, again, like with Sebastian's, there was enough. With Summers, there was enough to like ask everybody and see what was going on. So it just makes you wonder, like, and these were small towns too. So this is where that girl boy stuff does come into play. I do think still, like people are just hiding their own crap and don't want everybody to look at them. So they're just going to kind of like hide everything else that's going on. So I think like probably with Sebastian and Summer being both in Tennessee, like, and it does seem like it's very spread out throughout it, like it does maybe like maybe there is some kind of web of something going on there that needed to be exposed, and that's what it seems like these cases have done.
It's either they're 50 minutes apart or they're 50 miles apart. They're not that far apart.
No, they're not. No, and I think that's why so many people related them right away.
And I get it that maybe they didn't have a CPS, like maybe someone didn't call something in to CPS about Summer. I get that maybe
Yeah.
they're trying to say, well, there was never a call for us, but my thing is, if you're removing 3 of the children already, why should somebody have to call and say, I think this child's being abused?
Yeah, because automatically, if they're in the home.
Yeah, yeah. So I think they just failed. The reality is Summer saved her brothers.
Yeah.
That's the reality, because I still think they were going to be taken, but I'm not positive on that.
Yeah.
I don't know if the decision was finally made, like they were checking on them. So I don't know if the decision was made after Summer went missing or before, that the boys were going to be removed. But they were removed in July, and Summer went missing in June.
Yeah.
4 years today she went missing, and the boys were removed in July, I believe.
Yeah.
It was in July. So
yeah, and I think that's probably what you're saying. Like, what happened with Summer was to expose and like keep help with the boys. You know, kind of like when you look into the Madeline McCann case and a lot of the readings that people have done on her, they'll tell you that for the same reason, it was to kind of like expose what was going on with her family and the people around them, so that her siblings could also, you know, have a better life and things than what was going on with her. You know, and not to say like that's the only purpose, but it's to expose other things, kind of like Sebastian's, just expose other things. Like with Faith, it feels like, you know, there was a big part of keeping Faith out of that home. I don't know what it would have been. I don't know, but I do know wasn't there an accusation that allegedly that he had busted a child's lip and it was a girl? I don't know if it was Faith or her,
yeah.
I'm
not sure.
Nina or whatever's other child.
Yeah.
But I do know that was something that happened, you know, and so it just makes you wonder, like, and like you're saying, girls, a lot of times too, if abuse is going on with the boys, it's more than likely going on with the girls, probably a little bit more too, because girls are going to cry and they're going to whatever. And so things like that. So I thought about that a little bit with, if he was rough, like on Sebastian like that, how would he have been on Faith too? And a lot of the things he says, Sebastian, like I noticed he said on something like Sebastian used to use, I think he called him, maybe you would know this, he called them like military knives or military hands or something like that, where he said, like, I guess you'd point like this at somebody. Where do you think he learned that from? Probably them. You know what I mean? Like, they're the ones that are trained to do that. So that's what I'm saying. So he would, and even if he did, okay, so someone talking at you like this was enough to like, oh, you're in trouble. Like, you're being disrespectful. You're this, you're that. And I said, again, a lot of what he says about Sebastian is actually him. It's actually his behavior. It's and even it was just mirroring. You know what I mean? That's all it is. So everything that he tells you. So I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if he's walking around in like an adult diaper, like in my opinion. You know, just because everything he says is just like, I think you're talking about yourself a little bit. You know what I mean? Like, you're a big crybaby, in my opinion. Like, everything that you say is a big like complaint, everybody else is doing something but not me.
Right.
So I don't know. I'm just saying, like, I think a lot of what he says, he's talking about himself. So,
I agree.
Yeah. So,
and for Summer, she was getting ready to start school.
Yeah.
And you know, she was getting ready to start school, and she was going to be around teachers and kids, and kids talk.
Yeah.
I feel like Summer was just a little more mature than most girls her age, because she had to be.
Yeah.
She was thrown into that knowledge of, she probably knew things and seen things she shouldn't at 5 years old. You know, and like with Sebastian, I feel like he was like starting to take up for himself. He was starting to speak. He found his voice, and and who knows, he might have been using his computer and his whatever system. I don't know if he had a computer or a Google notebook. I forget what it is he had.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
No, he could have been looking up, how do I report this? Who do I go talk to?
Yeah.
You know, I feel like he was learning and trying to figure out ways to protect himself, and he was taking up for himself, and that became an issue.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's the sad part of it too. Like, and I always talk to you about that. You know, it's like he was doing, again, everything to protect himself and to like even if nobody else was going to help him, he was going to do it. You know what I mean? Like he was figuring it out, you know, and it just shows you like the life that he had in him, you know, like the fierceness in the sense of like, I'm going to take care of myself and I'm not going to let you push me around. And that shows how much CP and KP are just cowards and bullies really in reality, because what this all boils down to is that he didn't want them pushing him around anymore.
Right.
He didn't want them lying and saying that he was lying and all this crap, you know what I mean? And so it's like, because he stood up for himself and he said no more, then that's why this happened. You know what I mean? And that's what I'm saying. That's the part, like I said, you look at like, again, Summers, I do feel, again, there was an orchestration to it, but I feel like something also went wrong with Madeline McCann. Something went wrong. But with this, it's like, this is so like sinister and sick, you know, that the fact that these two idiots like did this and like they sit there and act as if everybody needs to just shut up and mind their own business and they've never done anything wrong. And how dare they be judged? But then they're on there, like he's on there saying, again, all these things that to me are admitting to abuse and neglect, in my opinion. So, again, I don't see what the problem is. I mean, right there, he's telling you what they done, and she's not doing it to say it didn't happen.
And then when they were describing him, it was everything he did wrong.
Yeah.
I mean,
what nice things did they say?
Yeah. I mean, you know, he like, it was so much. He has a young mind. Or, you know, he smells.
Yeah.
You know, they were saying awful things about who goes out and says that about their child who's missing.
I think someone or people who are just trying to like convince themselves what they did was the right thing that they should. Yeah, and that's why I said I think I don't know if I ever saw it here, but like I don't know if this is always like a merciful kind of situation. You see a lot of so it's like a mercy thing. So I think that's what she reasoned this as. That's why she made this big deal of I took him to do this and I took him to do that and he had the most fun. And it's almost like, look, I made sure he had the best day before this happened. You know what I mean? So that all leads to like, yes, this was a mercy thing to me. You know what I mean? They thought they were making it easier, not only for themselves, but almost for, you know what I mean? Like, and again, it just shows you the sickness and the twistedness of their mind and their level. That's what I'm saying. They're not really safe people to be out in the street, in my opinion.
Right.
Like if they can do, I mean, I don't think anybody that could do even what they did before this happened would be, but definitely if you're looking at it from what you see, what's happened and all the kind of stuff, I do feel like that's what it is, which makes it even worse. Yeah. Oh, he's in a mood. His sugar is a little high.
That's okay. He's all right.
Yeah.
And the other thing is they came back a year on the year and said, well, we believe we want to, what did she say? That the description of Sebastian was misconstrued or misinterpreted or something. I was like, no, we definitely just did not misunderstand what you were saying.
No, she tried to make, and like Aaron's saying, they tried to make him small.
Yeah.
And then when people watched the videos of him and they saw him with his teachers and the stuff that people were saying about him and stuff and all the things that they were telling you about him, it's like, it's not adding up to what you told us. And then you see how their behaviors are again in the interviews, and you very much get guilty, in my opinion, for you know, of what I see. So so that's what I was saying about this interview is the complete opposite. And just making Sebastian small, making it seem like, that's what I'm saying, they're almost making it seem like even if something happened, he didn't understand. And that's the shit that makes you mad. You know what I mean? Because it's like, that's just a horrible, horrible way to try to portray this to be. And then the people who kind of almost accept that for the answer and get mad at people who are questioning it. It's like, you know, you get kind of disappointed in that because you get a lot of that online too, you know, where people kind of try to defend it and stuff. And
you made it sound like he couldn't go and ask for help. And I very seriously doubt that. He could go.
That's what he was doing. That was making them upset.
I agree.
And he was out again, and all this stuff he was telling you that he was doing with the military hands or the military or whatever, you know, this is all stuff that he does. This is all stuff that he was doing to Sebastian. The yelling, the getting right in your face, getting in your, like, you know, your personal space. I mean, even when you're like listening to him online, I feel like he's yelling at me in my personal space. You know what I mean? I feel like he's in my living room yelling at me. And so even when I did like the reading for him, there's a certain part that I got to the reading where I said, you know, like, the sad part about it too is like Sebastian expected betrayal. from
Yeah.
CP, but not KP.
Yeah.
You know, like that. Not like
Right.
that. You know what I mean? Like he thought
Mhm.
at least better than that. You know what I mean? And
Mhm.
so you get to a certain point too in his reading, and it's just like CP's anger is so much it almost paralyzes you. Like you almost freeze. You know what I mean? To where you can't move. Like you almost don't want to think too loud. I mean, this is how unstable this person is to me.
Yeah.
From like I
Yeah.
said, I know it makes me want to freeze to where I'm scared to move and think.
Mhm.
Like, you know what I mean? So it makes you just wonder how much this happened, you know, and things like that. So I guess that's the difference. Like when I did the readings for him and I do things like on his, it feels very much.
Suppressed.
Yeah, but it's like it's so intense too. Like the
Yeah.
feeling is
Yeah.
so intense from him. So it's almost like it's yours, kind of, you know. So it's just overwhelming and it's sad. So
Well, the sad thing too is there was a camera in the kitchen, but of course law enforcement didn't find one. But he used to put a camera in the kitchen so he knew when Sebastian was in there getting food.
I think so too.
My thing is Sebastian never had freedom. He was always being watched.
Yeah.
Always.
And can you imagine a life like that? Can you imagine a life of where you go into the kitchen and your stepdad starts yelling at you through the Ring camera to get out of the fridge? Well, you can't even get a snack without somebody. And that's what I'm saying. It makes you wonder how was his life when he was sick. Yeah. And that's the stuff that I sit and think about at night when I think about, because I think about a lot of the cases we've done and we've run and just where are they, you know, kind of thing. And you think about that and it's just like, what did he do when he was sick? You know, like you hope and you pray that they at least helped him. That, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know. That's what I'm saying. I want to believe that, like you said, like at some point, like at least in the past, like Katie wasn't always like that.
Yeah, I feel like when I did the reading for Sebastian, I might like, because I'll feel stuff sometimes. So my chest was like really heavy, like somebody was sitting on it, like trying to keep you from getting air, trying to keep you from talking and speaking almost. And it's like the energy was so bad that I was receiving from not from Sebastian, but from them.
Yeah.
Like it was like he was wearing a heavy coat all the time that just held him down and he couldn't move. Like he was always just struggling. And I so much did not want for it to be. Yeah. And I didn't want it to be the result that I knew it was.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. That's what I said. When I did his reading stuff, I automatically get this feeling of like, I just feel like I'm ripped out of my chest. And it's like, I just want to scream no. Like, and just like, no, like, it's like this realization of like, no, like it actually, that's what I'm saying. I think he heard them talking about some of that. I think he knew. That's why I said, like you said, I think he was looking up stuff. I think he was reaching out. I think he knew this was coming. And that's, again, everything about this has just made it sadder and sadder for me. You know what I mean? Like I said, and just, I think for anybody who's really, if you take the moment to put yourself in his place and how that had to feel, the two people you were at home with that you're supposed to trust are plotting against, you know, like,
I know,
and everybody you reach out to is like, oh, you're overreact. You know what I mean? And then once it finally happens, you realize, oh my, you know, like it actually happened. You know, like nobody listened, nobody helped, and that's what I'm saying. And I just can't imagine that feeling. It's so intense when you get into it, you almost have to pull out of it right away. You know what I mean? Because it's just too much, you know. And so that's the sad. So I did the reading, and then I stayed off of it for a while, and then when I kind of got back to it, like you said, a year or so later, that's when all the Amber Alerts and the videos and all this stuff started coming out. And so that's why I told you too, I was confused because I kind of thought CP was already arrested, you know, in the past. And so just because I saw him in that court video in the orange shirt, I thought he was in court, you know, like for himself for that. And so I just was like, great, you know, again, they, you know, they got him, whatever. And so, but now you look at it and it's just kind of frustrating. You look at it, you kind of just hope that eventually we'll get there.
Yeah.
So hopefully that's what this law does for them and the whole case.
Yeah.
Let's see what Anne says. She says, sorry, but most people like that usually are quite cowardly when you stand up. Poor Sebastian. And and that's the thing too. There's such like muddied people. And like, again, I think consumed by addiction, consumed by ego, consumed about all that stuff, that Sebastian was so pure, so happy, so even like whatever they did, I feel like he still tried to make the best out of everything all the time. You know what I mean? Like you said, he would go to school, and then you had made a comment like he would ask the teacher something, or what was that about the tickets or something?
He would go to the SRO officer and peep in there and say, "Are you going to write the teachers a ticket today?"
Yeah, and like how many are you going to do
how
today?
many tickets are you going to write today?
Yeah, and that's so cute.
That's really cute, because it's like, what was he going to write? I would like to have known what he thought. What were the teachers going to get a ticket for? What would have been a teacher's ticket? Would it have been, like getting onto the kids, or would it have been walking in the hall, or
like not using the crosswalk or something?
What did the teacher do to get a ticket? That would have been, real cute to know what his idea of I think he just wanted a teacher to get. I thought he just thought it was just really cool. But that's a sense of humor. That's not a child that doesn't know how to talk, or has the mind of a younger person. He was 15. I mean, that's pretty clever.
Yeah, it is clever. I mean, and that, to me, that's with it. You know what I mean? Like that's completely with it. So yeah, and that's why you said when they made the comment that he wasn't so with it in the beginning, I think they did that because they wanted you to feel like his life wasn't that important, in my opinion. And that's what I'm saying. And I know that sounds blunt, but the reason I say that is because you have to look at it for what they're saying and what it truly is. And so that's what I think they did that for. And that's why I think it's sad that you see that they're starting to use autism a lot more in some of these things, because they think that, and some people do that. And like they even said in some of the comments, well, do you think that or did he beat him with the belt before or after his diagnosis of autism? What would that matter? Yeah, like what would that matter? And either way, like it doesn't make it better before or after, but like because just say he was autistic and it was after, like what you think, because like he's not, like because they gave you the impression he doesn't understand everything, like that makes it like he doesn't understand he's getting hit with the belt. You know what I mean? Like it's kind of like, I don't know, it's just it's gross. It's gross.
Yeah.
It's completely gross. And the fact that most people are trying to like ride on that, and that's how they're soothing their conscience about the fact that they don't look into this more or actually care more. Like that seems to be more of a them problem than anything else.
And if they said he was recently diagnosed, or not diagnosed, they said diagnosed, but he was recently said to have been found that he has or tested for autism. And she's like, and now he's taking medicine for autism. There is no medicine for autism, right?
No, we talked about that. Yeah, there's no autism medication. And so that's something, when she kept saying that in the beginning, I was waiting for the reporter to be like, or somebody to be like, well, what's that? Because I thought just most people knew there's no such thing as autism medication. And if there was, I mean, maybe we should know what that is. Because if you were to see him, like maybe you could help him or something like that. But when she said autism medication, I was like, I wonder what that is. And my son's been autistic for his whole life, but he just graduated and stuff. So at least 18 years, and I've never heard of an autism medication. So that was a good point, again, that they said that. And so, they were definitely trying to play that autism route, the whole time at the beginning. And then when that didn't pan out and people were like, he understood a lot more, he would make this joke at school with us about the teachers. And they would say how he would, you see the pictures of him, the videos of him, and it's like, that's not adding up. So, but hello everyone too, as y'all come in. Hi, Natalie. And happy Father's Day to everyone as y'all come in, if there's any fathers in here.
And I agree with you. Anne.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you, Scout. Thank you.
Thank you. And it's so nice to have y'all here too. Like have some of the people who have been here, for a long time. It seems like a bunch of familiar faces, so that's nice. But I agree. I do think it was a situation of CP not being able to handle the fact that he was standing up to him and he wasn't putting up with his behavior, or really it sounded anymore like whatever KP was trying to let CP get away with anymore, like
Sebastian was like what, 5'5"? He was almost as tall as Chris.
Yeah. And I mean, and he was an intelligent, and everybody loved him, kind of thing. And I think it was just intimidating for Chris. Like Like, like we said this about somebody in the past that I know, like, a personal life, but we're like, they probably never heard anybody say that they were their best friend in their life. You know what I mean? So I bet like nobody but KP has ever told CP and his mom. You know, nobody's probably ever told him that, oh, you're my best friend, you're great, other than CP and his mom, or KP and his mom.
Right.
You know what I mean? So like that's how I get like Chris has had the most like, you know, talking up of his life. But for the most part, like there's nothing about him at all that you see that's like, I mean, he's always saying stupid stuff. You know what I mean?
Well,
He's
yeah, he said the best thing about this is Sebastian has managed to, I forget how he put it, but he's managed to fool everybody and nobody can find him.
Yeah, and then he said he always wanted to be a ninja. He's like, and look at you. Something he says real stupid shit. You know what I mean? And it's kind of like, dude,
how is this the best thing? There's no best thing in here.
No,
nothing's good about this.
Well,
Nothing.
and then when she said, and then we were talking about, you know, and then we'll get to the Kyron Horman thing because that just popped into my head too. But you know, and saying how, you know, there's other missing children, and that they're just as important, if not more. And it's like, don't get me wrong. I'm sure if my child was missing, I would hope all the missing children would be found. But I think I'd be a little bit more laser focused on my child, and that's probably not the first. Or I mean, she's only done what, like 2 or 3 interviews in the whole time frame. So I'm just saying, if you're doing like regular interviews and like you're kind of doing, you know, and you're speaking with people, that's something you would expect to hear in that. But not like you're fake, like, oh, look, I got a tattoo yesterday. And it's like of his favorite color and a broken cross, but it's not a memorial or anything. And then like every time I talk about him, I look up to the sky, but that's not for a particular reason either. And then, you know, like I talk about all these things in the past tense, but that's also not for a particular reason. So, I mean, like,
the minute I saw that, I'm like, oh, I looked it up. The minute I saw that on her arm, I was like, oh no, And it was being one with God. And I'm like, yeah, there you go.
Yeah, and that's what I said. She tells on herself constantly.
Yeah.
And yes, like we do go back to Gannon, and he's another one, you know. I think he was supposed to also be on the spectrum, but also with Gannon's too, like, I feel like also Letitia, I feel like that was another one. Something like just switched all of a sudden with her. Like, I don't think she was always bad to him. You know what I mean? Like, I think that something happened. I don't know what happened to her, but like it was the same thing with her. Like almost like, I don't know if it was like a switch with Katie, but I felt like that with Letitia. I do feel like Letitia, and I do feel like they mimicked each other a little bit in the sense of like how bright the children were, how loved they were, and how you know, just everybody wanted to be around him, you know. So Gannon was the same way too, you know. So yeah, and the light always triggers the dark. So CP and KP are heavily entrenched in the dark at this point. You know, that's kind of how I feel. And so kind of like we were talking about with Kyron, and I was saying like the other missing children, and then Kyron Horman. I've had some people talk about Kyron Horman recently too, and they were looking back into his case, another step parent kind of thing. And not to say like all step parents, that's not where I'm going with it.
But it's a little
likely the reason. Yeah, you know, I mean, people will target people for the reason that they're not their children, you know. So there's certain reasons for that. But like with Kyron Horman, you know, and you said you did his case. I haven't read his case, so obviously, you know, like I'll link that. I'll go through your stuff and link that whenever the video's up, so that people can kind of look at that. But I noticed that day of the fair, you know, like his stepmom, I'm pretty sure she probably dressed him that day. He's wearing, and I know everybody's saying, well, he liked the CSI stuff. I remember them saying in interviews that his stepdad was a detective or something like that, that his mother had remarried, and that he was really into that, and he really loved it and stuff. But what disturbed me about that picture is he's wearing that on the day he goes missing.
Yeah.
So again, you have to think about the chances of all the shirts this kid had. Why is he missing in a CSI crime scene shirt? You know what I mean? And like you said, he was so excited for that. She's the only one that walked him up to the room. She just, every part of her story just fell into place perfectly for, you know, whatever happened. So, and I think, you know, I don't know if they're looking back into her too with this, but I would hope, you know, they're looking back into that. But it's kind of like sticking on that theme of like, if you look hard enough, you can see it. Like the hands, like, kind of like, again, Katie's tattoo, again, combing the weeks before with Katie. Like I say, when she said that, it just made my stomach turn. Like it did. Like when I first watched that interview with Katie Proudfoot, and I combed over the weeks before and I couldn't figure it out. Again, I almost re-loop on that statement because it just, again, weeks this could have been stopped. He asked for help during these weeks. So it's just, it's mind blowing. How did it still happen?
she combed over the weeks before to make sure there was nothing incriminating in there for her.
Right. She was making sure she was hitting all the right security systems and at all the right times.
Yep. Yep. And in Kyron's case, the best friend of the stepmom, you know, she had immunity for a while. She don't have that no more.
Oh, really? See, I didn't know that.
Yep. She don't have that anymore. So
why did she have immunity in the first place?
I don't know. I don't know if law enforcement gave her immunity because she told some things. I don't know. I just know that it came out that she no longer has immunity.
And you know what's interesting? When we did do a lot of these readings, and you know, someone else brought this up in one of the past lives we did for Sebastian. It was probably like the last one or the one before it. A lot of these are starting to fall into the time frame of when we said June, July, stuff was going to start coming out. Whether it would be new laws for the cases who aren't getting actually arrested and like prosecuted yet, or it was going to lead to the prosecution eventually. But I mean, you hear, what was the tip too for everyone in case, you know, I don't know how much, I know you said it on your live and stuff, but I didn't know if maybe you wanted to kind of share whatever it was recently about Summer Wells too, because I mean, it's been Kyron Horman, you know, with looking into it. Sebastian's looking into it again. Summer supposedly is this tip. So there's a lot of stuff where you're starting to see some of that again.
Yeah. The tip wasn't, it's a little confusing on the tip. It was about somebody had stolen something and from the Wells house or something, and it happened around the time Summer went missing and they saw something. But it's a weird tip because it's been given, there's like pieces of it. In my opinion, I think it's BS.
Yeah. But usually something always gets said, it seems like, from something else, or maybe to distract from something else. So do you think it could be something like that? Or do you think someone could just be trying to get attention?
Well, it happened right before the anniversary of her missing, which is today.
Yeah.
So it happened right before that. And it happened like my thing was, when I heard it, I was like, okay, we're going on 4 years. If this is such a great big tip, why are we just now getting it? Because the odds are this was something that was known 2 years ago.
Yeah. Because she's been missing for you said 4 years?
4 years, yeah.
Yeah. So someone had said too, they didn't know much about like Summer's story. Do you mind giving just like a quick like snippet of like when she went missing?
Yeah. On June 15th, 2021, Summer went missing supposedly around 6:30 in the afternoon. The first story was her mom, Candace Wells, or Candace Bly. Sorry, Wells is not her last name. Mm-hmm. She went for a walk, and when she came back, Summer was missing. That was the 911 call, which is not true. That is not what happened. Candace will tell you and has said on several lives, she don't go for walks. She don't go for runs. She don't go for walks. Why that was said to the night when they first called it in, who knows? Yeah. The story is they came home from getting her mom's medicine. She went over to her mom's trailer to help her with her knee brace, and she was only gone like 2 minutes. And when she came back, Summer had went over to the house because the boys were in the house playing on YouTube or playing their games, their handheld games. And she went in the house with the boys. Candace said she was only gone 2 minutes. She went back in there, called for Summer, asked the boys, where's Summer? They're like, she's down in the playroom, which is really the dungeon.
Yeah.
She called down there and Summer never answered her, which was unusual. And so she went looking and Summer was nowhere. That's the story that we'd been given. Then we were given, right before that happened, she was over planting flowers.
Yeah, I remember hearing something about gardening or something, I thought. And then they said a piece of candy.
Yeah. Then grandma gave her a piece of candy and she went over to the house. So they've said the story has been
So how
several
does the
times.
water hole thing tie into that?
So supposedly before they got home, they went to drop medicine off to be filled for grandma or Grandis. And it wasn't ready. So they went to the water hole to wait until Grandis medicine was done. Then they were going to go back and pick it up. So she thought she would take them just for a quick swim. And I'm like, okay. So that's how the swimming hole come into play.
Yeah.
I don't
And that's where
think
she's supposed to
Summer,
be in the back seat, right? From the
and
way
Summer
home.
never, Summer never actually went swimming.
Yeah.
So, and then they went and picked the medicine up, and then supposedly she went to the smoke shop, and then they went and got milk, and then they went home.
Yeah, so it was like a whole lot of different things. Like that's what
Yeah,
I'm saying.
I mean,
It jumps around a lot. So
yeah, jumps around a lot.
and
Yeah.
then Ann said if you had heard there's a new PI on Summer's case or not.
Yeah, I don't know who this PI is. He is apparently from Utah, and I do know it's a he. That I got that much. And why that? See, that's why I had a whole lot of questions in my live the other night about this. I went live about this and a couple of other things, but my questions were, why did they pick him? Why did they pick this PI of all PIs to go to? Why didn't you go to TBI first? Why didn't you go to TBI first? And why did you go to the PI and the PI go to the parents of the missing child and say, we got a tip? When I heard that, I was like, this can't be a good tip for them to go to the parents. I know that the parents are supposed to know the tips. I get it. They're supposed to communicate and stuff.
Yeah.
But the PI should have went to TBI first and let TBI go to the parents. That, in my opinion.
Incredible.
Yeah. So they went to this man. Why? Because he's from Utah? Is that why you went to him? And then he went to, supposedly went to, he said, I'm not going to give the tip. I'm giving the tip on Monday because TBI, because I got the tip on a Saturday.
That's weird. Yeah, I'm like, that's what I'm saying. Like, you can tell when people are bullshitting you because you're kind of like, after they say something, you're confused. You're like, what? That's really confused.
You know, they say he's a credible PI. He's been around for a while. You know, he's an older person, and I'm not trying to take anything away from him. Maybe he is. I don't even know his name, so I can't say if he is or isn't. But it's just fishy when a tip comes up and it's been this long, and you go to the parents. I mean, protocol, I would have thought as a PI would be TBI and then let TBI go to the parents.
Especially when the parents, again, seem to be in a position of suspicion for the most part because they've never been completely cleared. And then, yes, we will drop Tammy's also, too. We're going to drop your link. And Chief will probably do it in a second when he gets a chance. If not, then it will definitely be in the description part of the video. So I'll add all that stuff, too, as it's uploaded, unless you have it already copied and pasted on your side, Tammy, for your chat. But I think Chief's in the backyard with Lola. So as soon as he gets in, we'll have him post that for you. So and then
I can go in. Where they just want my link to my channel.
Yeah, just the link to your channel. I think I'll probably do it on here too, maybe. I just don't know if it'll start playing stuff in the background.
I'll go find it.
Yeah. So
the tip just bothered me. I mean, maybe it's just me. You know,
I mean, I think it's a weird way to present a tip out. You know, I would agree. I would go to the police first, probably. I don't think I would go to the people who really haven't cleared themselves. I mean, they've been proven they've had like substance abuse and things like that. So in my opinion, allegedly. So add all that, but I think it's pretty clear. That's why, wasn't that some of the reports of the CPS too for the boys? of some of that, or was it some? Yeah. So that's what some of the reports were, which is again is interesting that they were able to turn the boys over to make them reports disappear.
Right.
So.
And the thing I, also talked about Josie's adoption. Bless his heart. That made me so sad because.
So who is Josie exactly? In case everybody doesn't really know.
Say again.
Who is that exactly in the scenario? In case everybody doesn't really
Josie's
know.
the oldest. He's the oldest son.
Okay.
Of Don and Candace.
Okay.
There's three boys: Josie, Waylon, and Wyatt.
Okay. And Waylon and Wyatt were the two oldest of the summer.
Well, apparently they were all taken at the same time. CPS took them all at the same time. We were originally told they all got to stay together. I was like, that's good, but I found it odd because that's a lot for a family to take 3
kids. Yeah.
3. And at the age they were, I mean,
yeah.
I got 3 grandsons I keep every day, and they're 13,
wow.
8, and 6. So I get that's a lot to get used to. But I was praying. I was like, oh, please let them stay together. They've been through so much. Let them stay together. And then just recently we found out they are not together.
Yeah.
Josie is not with them. Now, I don't know if the other 2 are together. I heard that they were already adopted and they were in another family together. I don't know that for sure.
Yeah.
But Josie, and I had a real problem with I didn't realize that that's how children were adopted. I didn't know they made a video on them and then present it like that. And I was like, I don't know. It kind of bothered me, but then I thought, well, how else would you do it, really?
Yeah. I mean, that's like Lifetime movies. Lifetime, because I watched a couple Lifetime movies about adoption. But Lifetime movies, like they're supposed to be dramatic and stuff. And I'm like, man, I was like, if I was going to do that, I'd be really nervous from watching all these movies, And not to say there's anything wrong with it. I'm just saying, because I have a cousin who was adopted, it's like that.
Yeah.
She loves, like she's been great and stuff. So like, but I'm just saying, like, they make the process seem so hard, and so like grueling and stuff, and especially on the children. So it's just kind of you watch it. So
but they said, they said they dropped the charges against Candace and Don for abuse, and they made a deal with them. Give up your rights, and we'll drop the charges.
Yeah,
which I get a little confused about that because, like I said, I don't know how it works. But if CPS takes children, I mean, do they have to give up rights if it's an abuse thing?
I would think so.
Still,
I think maybe it would. Yeah, it might depend on like the level of it. Like maybe in that case, because Summer was already missing. So like, I do think they'll strong arm you. Yeah, they would definitely will. That's why I still think with like Lily and Jack, I still think she got strong armed to go into her mama's house with that baby. I don't think she did it free willingly because she was doing the best thing for her and the baby. No, I think that they told her to get her ass over there. They were going to take that baby away from her. So, I do think that that's what it was. Yeah. So, but I do think they. Yeah. Yes. And thank you so much. We appreciate it. We're glad to have everyone. And Scott says, the state takes guardianship. So I guess that makes sense. So when they do take them away from you, they have to take guardianships. They're allowed to do what they need to do or what they want to do with children. They can make medical decisions, probably school, stuff like that, what Scout's saying. So you would do that. But I don't know. It makes you wonder, like, again, how much would have to be proved for them to take them right away? Because they don't automatically do that. They don't automatically take them. You have like I said, sometimes they'll send you your parents. Sometimes they'll send you to like a supervision thing where you can have somebody with you. Sometimes they'll take them away altogether. So I don't know what level constitutes it. But like with Sebastian's and Summers, I think it definitely constituted for them to be taken away long before any of this happened.
Yeah.
So, and that's the part where I'm hoping these laws, if they can get them kind of into place in Tennessee as far as Amber Alert. And then if a child does go missing, you can't just make it disappear with the child. That you never should be able to make something like that disappear, because then you end up with people like CP who like almost brags, oh yeah, I've got CPS stuff all across the United States. I'm not really bragging about that kind of stuff. That's what I'm saying. He says a lot of stupid shit, so it's kind of like, all right, well, You know, so it's like, that's the thing. You would be able to keep better track of that and hopefully be able to do something about it better in the future. Because again, this person's bragging at this point. He's bragging. He's on there telling you exactly what he did to him, exactly how he did it. The only thing they're not telling you is like, and when I say exactly how he did it, I mean like how he treated him on the regular, in my opinion, from like I said, from the comments from the teachers, and then what he says himself about how he treated him in certain situations. And again, the stuff he tells you where Sebastian was in trouble, it's like, I'm missing the part that he did something that's in trouble here. You know, I hear you standing your ground about how it was so wrong, but I'm not hearing what he really did that was wrong, other than just not agree with you, or just not go, okay, Chris, you're right. You know, yes, Mr. Chris, whatever you say. You know what I mean? So that's basically,
that drives me nuts, Mr. Chris. Oh
yeah, I think that's, I don't even see, again, well, we know why, you know, the kind of personality, at least why he wanted it, but an average person, yeah, you would never want a child, much less a stepchild, to look at you and say Mr. Chris or Mrs., you know, Tammy or Mrs. I just feel like that would be completely inappropriate. So the fact that he got off on that, he brags about how he treated him, brags about how he treated him to like the people even closest to him, you know, like, and then the comment, you know, about like if Seth, you know, had said anything about certain things, that would be like the kind of last thing he kind of, as I'm saying, these are all, to me, it's enough stuff to like say there's nothing wrong with you in this whole situation. So
and he's threatened creators. I mean, you know, he hasn't threatened me because I've not done any, you know, videos on Sebastian because I've been working. I wanted Summer to be my first case that I covered, because I covered her in the beginning.
Yeah.
And I just didn't have a channel then. So, you know, I've always followed Summer. I was actually gonna cover Rose when Summer went missing. Her aunt Rose when Summer went missing, and then Summer went missing. So I still did a video on Rose, but then I just kind of switched over to helping with Summer. And I think I think my live this coming up week is going to be talking about Rose and Summer.
Yeah.
I think I'm going to do that Wednesday night, talk about Rose and Summer. And I'd like to talk about the Sebastian case, but I feel like so many people's covering it right now that, you know.
I think everybody gets pulled to something individually. Like, I think for you, you know, like, again, I get pulled a lot more into like people like Sebastian's and Gannon and things like that, because I do have like boys and on the spectrum and like all that kind of stuff. And so where you have the girls. And so I think we get pulled to certain things. And that's what I said with Sebastian's, you know, since the moment, like I really sat down after the reading in these last few months that I've talked to you about it, it really has been one of those ones where I'm like, it's nothing I'm ever going to forget ever. You know what I mean? Like, and nothing I don't think I could ever forgive the world for it either, you know, for almost like the energy of the world for letting it happen. You know what I mean? Because it could have been stopped, you know? So it's one of those things that's just like, you can never forgive that. You know what I mean? And that's why you want to see something happen, and you want to see some type of justice be brought in for him and Seth, just in the sense that they deserve it after everything, the position that they've been put in. You know, like he asked for help. He asked for it from all the right places. He was getting to, you know, possibly getting to go with him soon. Like he had a whole life to start with his dad, you know, and that they're still looking forward to. So I think that the least that they can do in that state is to give them something, you know, give them some type of justice for it, you know, like give them the laws that they deserve. You know what I mean? Like they let this get out of hand, and that's their fault. You know what I mean? So now you have to fix it. I think that's where things fall a lot here too. It's like at some point, like you have to take accountability for your wrongs as a person. You know what I mean? Like you can't say like, oh, I did this, so let me hide it some more. Like you can't keep hiding everything. I mean, look what's happening again, like in Hollywood and all those places. It's going to get exposed. And again, you might as well just expose it yourself and get it out the way that you want it out. Because otherwise, again, you ain't going to like the way it comes out when it does. That's how I feel. You know what I mean? So like and it's just, it's easier to like deal with it when you take it onto yourself. You know what I mean? So no matter the wrong that you've done, like I said, again, I just feel like them saying what they've done is the best thing to help move forward a situation. We're not going to get that from them. So since we're not going to get that, the next best thing is to put the laws in place, charge them with the things they've admitted doing, because they've admitted to, again, in my opinion, abuse and neglect from the things they've said. So you've already admitted that. It's on camera. It's on recorded live. So cut the tapes and take them with you to court. There's no problem there. And nobody's going to disagree, I don't think, with that. And then as you got them in court, then start doing the other stuff, the proof of life, the you know, charging the city and suing the city for, you know, the misdoings of letting the things happen to where now we can't find him. You know what I mean? So the civil suits, the wrongful, suits and all that kind of stuff. And that's where you're going to get the most movement. That's where you get people to pay attention. And with Harmony Montgomery's, that's what happened with hers. Her mom got the wrongful death. Her mom got the civil suits against the city. And then her mom, all these things went through. And now her mom, she got money, paid from that. But the point being is she got everything put into place. Her dad's behind bars for life, if not about to be put to death. So what better thing could you get from that? I mean, I would love to see CP and KP sitting in the same position. I think most of us would. So, and if, again, put them in there, they'll roll eventually. They'll tell. Somebody's going to get annoyed with being there, and again, I do think that, like you've said, CP knows more or he wouldn't still be around.
Oh, no, he would not.
And so does his family. That's what I said. When you did the reading, when we did a reading on him or we tapped into any of that stuff, again, his family is so heavily involved. It is like there's a complete third party in the sense of like they helped plan and execute. So again, that's just my opinion from what I see. But again, you can still see that from what happens. I mean, there's a car. Who shows up? There's two people.
With what you're saying is they need to be held accountable, and I think that's important because there's faith. I mean, if they don't hold him accountable, what happens if Faith ever goes to his house and something happens to her? They're preventing future. They're preventing that stuff from happening. So if he did that stuff to Sebastian, you're going to want her to go.
Well, and now that she knows what happened to Sebastian too, she's old enough to probably be figuring out that this don't make no sense. You know what I mean? And so you think you haven't scared that poor little girl into being quiet if something does happen? And again, this is all my opinion and things like that. But like, and that's kind of how I feel with Sebastian. It's like, he just got it was just almost like the silence. It was like, even if I say something, I'm going to be ignored, kind of thing, or I'm not going to be taken seriously. And look what it led to. So, I mean, you would think that for Faith, it would have to almost feel the same a little bit. Like, my half brother is like, look what happened. She knows what her dad's like, in my opinion. She knows what he's probably like. And so, yeah, it does make you kind of wonder what would have happened or what could have led to, because the more and more they get away with, the worse things they're going to do each time. I feel like, again, because you need to almost up the ante each time to get that thrill that you're getting from any of things, because they're getting thrills off of that. He gets a thrill off of telling somebody off and getting in their face. He gets his rocks off. That's what the whole thing's about, because he's again, a bully, a coward, all those things. So, but yeah, so that's how I kind of feel about that too. I just feel.
And the other thing I have a problem with is they made a deal, with Candace and Dawn, supposedly, and I haven't looked into this, so I'm going to look more into it, but to give up their rights and then they would drop the charges. That's what I'm reading and seeing, but I'm going to look more into that. But if that's all it takes, what's the incentive for other people not do that?
Yeah. And that's kind of why I think this is so important to keep calling it out when you can, because again, like you said, what's the incentive to not keep doing this when people know they can do this and probably get away with it? Why would they not try to do that and get away with it? So I don't know. And that is another reason why the baby would be scared to say anything. Yeah. And that's what, Cindy also said, kind of what you were saying about why the tipster possibly didn't trust to tell the TBI or who. So that's why and again, that's why I kind of said too, also about scaring them into being silent, kind of like what Cindy's saying. It's the same reason. You're scaring them into being silent by not doing that, by not taking them seriously or keeping them in a home where this person's an abuser. I mean, in my opinion, I don't remember to say that so much, but.
And, I could see it. I can, but I couldn't see. I mean, if you would have said, well, we dropped the charges because they're giving us a lead in Summer and it's a credible lead. Okay, will that help us find Summer? Yeah. But obviously, there wasn't a deal made for you to tell where Summer's at.
Yeah.
But in my opinion, they don't know where Summer's at. You know why they don't know where Summer's at? Because they handed her off.
Yeah.
That's why they don't know where Summer's at.
Yeah. And that's why when Katie says she doesn't know where Sebastian is, I believe her. I don't think she knows where he is. She wasn't with him when it happened. She just handed him off. She did her job. She ate breakfast that morning, and he told her that he loved, she was the best mom, and went to bed. You know what I mean? So that's what I'm saying. Like, she basically told you, like, she's telling you what she did for him that day because she knows. And that's what I'm saying. You look at the Roadhouse video and just know in that moment she knows exactly what's going to happen. And to me, that's enough. That's enough. You know what I mean? Like, I mean, you know, just to say this whole thing, like, they need to be charged. You know what I mean? Like, you know, and she's looking around. It was a good point. I never noticed how she scanned the room. Like you said a couple of times when you're talking back, I never noticed how heavily she scanned the room until you mentioned it. I mean, she was looking hard, and that just made, again, my stomach turn because I'm like, what is she looking for? Because it's like she's looking for something.
Somebody's like, oh, she's just looking around the room. I'm like, no,
that's not just looking. She's like breaking her neck, and she stays. And then you can see her on the camera, and you look at him, and he's looking at her like he knows. He knows something's wrong with her. He's like, yeah, what is wrong with you? He's like, why? You can see he's looking at her like, what is wrong with you? Like, what do you? What's wrong? Yeah, what's wrong with you? Why are you acting like that? You know what I mean? And I think she had to do that to detach herself mentally from what she was about to do. You know, so she was detaching him as a person. And that's why it came up with all the comments about his hygiene and things like that. Over these weeks, she was telling herself all these things about him to make it easier.
Yeah.
For what she was about to do. That's all I feel like, in my opinion, with that. And yeah, you're scaring these kids into not saying anything again, kind of like Scout and we were saying. So why wouldn't Faith feel like she can't say anything now? So yeah, you're giving these people protection to like behave and act this way and stuff. So
Cindy, I was going to ask Cindy's question. Did the Wells home? No, they actually live there. Believe it or not, they actually live in that house.
I never saw the pictures of their home or nothing really. So I know they were bad though.
There's only one video that you can go and see the actual inside of their home. And that's Chris Madonna, the interview room. I know a lot of people aren't a fan of him, but if it wasn't for him going up there and interviewing Candace and actually going in the home, we would have never seen how Summer really lived.
Yeah.
We wouldn't have known how bad it was for her. Yeah. So I'm glad for him for doing that because he showed us where that baby slept and how she lived and everything. Yeah. He's the only one that has an inside interview of the house where Candace gives him a tour of the house. Now, there are other YouTubers have been there, but they have not. They didn't show the inside of the house. There's a lot of outside of the house. Like if you go on Cher's Voices Behind the Wall, she has, and you can go on my channel if you want to too. I can't remember which live it was, but it's my first like 4 or 5 probably. It's the interviews with Don Wells. And there's actually one where he takes us on a tour of around his house and around the area. And that's on one of the interviews on one of my videos that I did. And you can see the outside of the house and how steep it is and how wooded the area is. But the only inside one you're going to get is looking at Chris Madonna.
Okay. So maybe we'll look at that next time. Because again, I never saw that. So it'd be interesting to kind of see that and see what it looks like on the inside. Because again, I haven't seen it, but I heard it wasn't good. You know?
Yeah, no, it's not. And after Summer went missing and the boys were taken, they were supposed to redo the basement. And they did. And they were supposed to do incentives to get the boys back. They didn't do them.
Yeah, they didn't want them, I'm sure.
So, now I know why they wasn't really trying.
Yeah.
Because they were working on dropping the charges against them, but they had to give up their rights in order for that to happen. But they did redo the basement. They did redo it.
Yeah. Well, what good is it now, really, when you kind of think about it? It's like it's pointless now.
No.
So,
yeah.
But okay, so I guess we'll kind of go ahead and cut out here, and then next time we'll kind of maybe look at that interview and kind of see how that is. And then I do have more of an updated birth chart or not. Yeah, it is a birth chart analysis still of like the whole thing with Sebastian. So maybe we can even do one of Summer's at some point, kind of see how that looks. But so yeah, and then I also want to get to another point, like I said, and kind of do a little bit more of the birth chart analysis for like a live for kind of Seth and Sebastian's put together, of just kind of like what, that looks like. And then I also had like a couple of like, because I get a lot of like songs and things intuitively, when I'm kind of listening to that. There's a lot of songs. Like I even thought about kind of sharing the one kind of tonight, that I had shared it with you in the past. It's Imagine Dragons. So like if y'all want to look it up yourself, I was going to kind of play it on here, but I don't think I'm going to play it right now just because Connor's, kind of needing my help right now. But we might listen to it next time. But it's Imagine Dragons if y'all want to look it up yourself, and it's Birds, I believe is just what it was. And so and that's the song I hear a lot too, that kind of I'll hear whenever I'm kind of looking at stuff into Seth for Sebastian, or those kind of cases together, because to me that's a song that kind of connects them too, and it's a beautiful song. So it is a beautiful song, and I had always heard the song before, and of course I knew it was something like that. But when I looked up the video and I sent it to you and I rewatched it, I did, like the kind of animation they put together. It perfectly goes with the song, and so it's just a really beautiful video. But so we'll probably look at that song next time too, whenever we go ahead and get ready to do those birth charts for them to kind of compare. But do you have anything that you kind of want to add that maybe I didn't add in before we get ready to kind of sign out for the night?
No, just if everybody can, share out like Sebastian's pick, his poster, his missing poster, Summers. I mean, just keep all of them. I think the easiest thing for us to do is, since we can't search, we can't put kind of effort into that, is just share out their missing posters and just keep talking about them out there, because these kids that are missing, that these parents that are suspect, they don't want their name to stay out there, and I think that is just the best thing for us to do, is just to keep it out there.
Yeah, I agree. And I think it helps, kind of maybe bring some of what we're looking for in, it's just giving them the kind of justification in the sense of like giving them a voice still that they don't have, like you're saying at this point. So yeah, just kind of keeping it out there and just hoping that, everything kind of comes out soon and falls into place soon the best way that it can for them. But I want to thank everybody too for joining us. It was such a pleasure to have everyone here and kind of engaging. And so that was nice too, to add, any info they have, in with ours. So, but we'll be here again, hopefully next Sunday, if you're available, we can kind of look a bit further into it, but don't forget to also, I'll put the link in the description and then we'll kind of add it again, but check out Tammy's channel and subscribe there. And also she gets into a lot of the Summer's Well stuff, and like she said, she's going to add on to that as well. But I want to tell everyone again, happy Father's Day. And thanks again for joining us.
Father's Day. And it's so good seeing y'all. We haven't seen y'all in a while. Thanks for coming back in. Haven't seen Scout and all of them in a while. So that's really nice.
Yeah, it's nice to see everybody.
It's been a while.
Yeah. But yes, y'all too. Y'all have a wonderful night, and everyone be blessed. And I will talk to y'all soon. And thank you again so much, Tammy, for joining me.
You're welcome. Thank you, my friend. Love you.
All right. Love you too. Bye, everyone.